Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith, along with
Ivan Ozerets.
Ivan Ozerets is the Iron Man. I took a power nap. East Coast time. It's almost 10:30. Say passion, Ivan.
Passion.
So I may have to reach over, even though he's the Iron Man, just slap him across the head so he can keep this thing going, because he's not going to have any coffee, any Coca-Cola. When's the last time you had chocolate?
It's been a while.
When's the last time you had caffeine?
Oh, I've only had coffee once.
In your whole life?
Yeah.
I don't like coffee. I like the smell of it, but I don't even like coffee ice cream. And then what about alcohol?
I've never had alcohol.
This guy is pure as the driven snow. Okay, we're going to call a Canadian, Joey Scrivano. One tip the Canadians understand is don't eat yellow snow. One thing, though, before we call up Joey, Robert Lansdorp, rest in peace, 1938, 2024, 86 years old, passed away today. We certainly should have a tribute to Robert Lansdorp. What an amazing story, what so many accomplishments. And the way he talked to children is the way they still should be spoken to. One of his most accomplished players, Elliot Telscher, he came to this workshop I was running. I think I've shared the story before. You talk about giving somebody the inner voice, it's how you're spoken to from a very, very, very young age. And I asked Elliot, and I remember watching Robert teach Elliot. And, he would just say, now you're a millionaire, but he would treat everybody the same. So anyway, I asked, I said, this time, Telscher, top 10 player, I think number 5 in the world. Not that big a guy, fast, ultra competitive. Same age as McEnroe. So I'm going to guess that during this workshop, he was in his 50s already. And I said, well, when you were a kid, tell us how Robert Lansdorp spoke to you. And a lot of coaches in the room, obviously. He goes, what do you mean? He still talks to me the same exact way today. Another announcement, the USPTA is no longer. It's the RSPA, the Racket Sports Professional Association. That's one thing with Rachel Rohrbacher, who we taught for many, many years, almost a decade. She's one of the best pickleball players in the world. I was sent an email, one of our coaches, Richard Bodian, who was just on the podcast not too long ago. He had recommended someone who's playing pickleball to listen to what Rachel had to say. I'm telling you, pickleball, to watch it be taught, is just like the wild, wild west. And that expression, if you can't beat him, join him. And then what we need to do in tennis is prevention of injury, teach people to play both sports. There's far, far more similarities than there are differences. But our guest today, Joey Scrivano, let me call him up and got some things to say about his accomplishments. He's been in college coaching, I would say, for 30 years, 23 years at Baylor. We were just at Baylor. Beautiful place. Beautiful, beautiful place. Okay, Iron Man, we got to stay awake for this one. Passion, passion, passion.
Steve.
Joey. Thanks
How's it going?
Thanks for being a guest on the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm at the table with Ivan.
Hello.
Hey, Ivan.
I've had my Baylor hat on.
I love it.
I'm wearing my green and gold. Thanks for the beautiful cap.
Yeah.
Let me just read some of these things for our listeners. 23 years. You'll have to correct me when I get to the bottom of this. 23 years as a Baylor head women's tennis coach. At Baylor, 2 teams in the Final Four, 6 teams in the Elite 8, 19 Big 12 championships. A period of 14 years, you had trips to the NCAAs, and your winning percentage during those years was .887, almost 9 out of 10. Numerous Coach of the Year awards, 29 All-Americans. Had an unseeded player win the NCAAs. You had success at Alabama. I'll have to talk to us about that. Played and studied at Eastern Michigan. Wife, Courtney, who we talk about her position. She works for Baylor on the administrative side. I call that the briefcase side. You got the ball hopper side and the briefcase side. And then Nico 8 and Lucas 6.
Yep.
With played and studied at Eastern Michigan. One thing I had down here too is that your team is in the past has climbed to the #1 ranking. But let's go back to how'd you end up at Baylor, being a Baylor Bear, Cambridge, Ontario. I've actually looked up who the best hockey players were ever from Cambridge, Ontario. Could you take a shot at that?
Best hockey players from Cambridge. I'm going to say Todd Harvey.
Who's that?
Scott Walker. Todd Harvey.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, there's a long list. I was on the fly, but Kirk Maltby, he won 4 Stanley Cups.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Schoenfeld. Is it Howard Schoenfeld? No, that's a tennis player. John Schoenfeld. He's the guy who, he played and he coached, and I can't remember. He went after a chubby coach or a chubby referee. And the big thing was, I'm going to go get you an effing donut. But tell us about your start in tennis.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me on, and just hearing those accolades. It's pretty amazing. Just how much work has gone into that by a lot more people than myself. That's a team effort. You guys know that it really takes a village to do anything. So I'm just honored that you guys would have me on, and I just love what I love what you're doing, Steve, for tennis, and it's just amazing to see someone like Ivan that is just all in. He just wants to keep the torch going. So just greatly appreciate what you guys do for the sport. But with that being said, I started playing tennis about 14. I started pretty late. I was, primarily into team sports. I played a lot of road hockey, I probably spent more time playing road hockey than any other sport, to be honest. I would get home and just be, banging the ball in the carport and playing, these, games in the neighborhood with other kids. And then when we were, when the weather would get really cold, we would, water down this local park called Barden Park. And then we, just be skating on terrible ice and playing games like that. So I was the smallest kid in the neighborhood. So I played, I was in goal a lot, I kind of just had to play goalie and took a beating, doing that. But anyway, so found tennis later on and just fell in love with it immediately, and had no idea what I was doing, but I just really was just passionate about it, like right off the bat. And I switched high schools so I could play tennis at this. I was planning to go to this Catholic high school that actually was really good in wrestling, because I was a wrestler in junior high. And once I found tennis, I said, okay, that's it. I'm going all in with tennis. So switched to this public high school that had a tennis team, without even really understanding, that, high school tennis is not necessarily the ticket to being a good tennis player. I mean, it's a part of it, but it's not the thing. But I just did that because, okay, I wanted to keep playing tennis, and that's kind of how it started, and then was just really fortunate that became friends with a guy named Dave Anderton, who's a phenomenal collegiate tennis coach, former collegiate tennis coach, who Steve and Yvonne, you met him in San Antonio, but he really kind of took me under his wing and taught me, hey, this is what you got to do. You got to, play year round. You got to find a good coach. And he introduced me to Harry Greenan and John Greenan at Courtside Racket Club way back in the day. And the Greenan family are just, they're kind of renowned in Canadian tennis, and especially in Ontario. So Harry and John were just so gracious to me and generous, giving me an opportunity to play and work at their club and kind of pay for lessons. that's kind of how it all started. And I was, not very good and trying to figure things out on my own, outside of those lessons. And, I haven't missed a day since, thinking about tennis and playing it or teaching it, since the age of 14.
I always tell people I'm good at three things: Lincoln Logs, which is, what would you say today? The Legos of the 1960s, Lincoln Logs. And then ball hockey and feeding balls. I mean, the one thing about street hockey in Canada, there's so many kids from all over the world, especially in a place like Toronto, that they've never been in a hockey rink, but it's like every street people are playing outside. They're playing street hockey. It's just so much fun. And, it's similar to pickleball that, people, if they've never played before, it's like, just give them a stick and they can instantly play, because the learning curve, you're not on skates. Let me ask you this, Catholic school in Ontario, I know to this day, because we have a couple Canadian girls here, Catholic schools are public. Then you wrestled. I mean, I have so much respect for wrestlers. I mean, the way wrestlers would work up and down those ropes and wearing the wetsuits and working a part of the gym where they would just have all the wrestling mats, and it was just, they turn the temperature up as high as they go, and people were trying to lose weight. But was there a little bit of discipline in the Catholic school?
Yeah, there was a little more discipline. But, it was smaller. A lot of immigrant families there. My parents are from Sicily, and a lot of the kids were either Italians or from Portuguese descent, or just very European and first generation Canadians. So really blue collar and just really family oriented. It was pretty neat. Looking back, I mean, you just really didn't have a worry in the world. You'd be outside playing street hockey until the lights came on. And you just had no worries, about anything. So just very different than the way my kids are growing up, for instance. But just the discipline was okay. It was the priests were around, and not so many nuns, but more priests. And you'd have your mass, weekly mass. I think it was on Wednesdays, and then confession, and all those good Catholic routines that you kind of go through. So
there's a cartoon where years ago the parents were on the side of the teacher, and the reverse now is where the parents are on the side of the kid. So if the teacher, if I got in trouble, go talk to my parents. The teacher was right, no questions asked. I was wrong. With Woodbridge, there's a place where there's a lot of Italians. I've always teased that Italians who came to America that were named Anthony, Tony, Tony, to New York. But then North York is that when they went to Canada, because there was a lot of Italians that are on the boys' side, they're named Anthony, Tony, but to North York. But Woodbridge is like 100%. I lived in Maple, and it's like every garage they were making spaghetti sauce around October. Cambridge has a large, is it 50, 60% Italian?
It's actually more Portuguese than Italian, but yeah, pretty healthy amount of Italians. The street I grew up on was primarily all Italians, from southern Italy. And then, over time we moved to another neighborhood a few blocks away, and it was a little more diverse. But yeah, it's just pretty cool. It's just very diverse and very family oriented. Everybody was looking after each other's kids. And I mean, there would be times, my mom, couldn't afford to have a babysitter, and, pretty young, and I'm just taking care of myself, fending for myself. And my best friend's, grandma would come over and check on me, and just very different upbringing. I mean, my kids now, my wife won't let them cross the street without me, checking on them. So it's just so different.
I was in Cambridge once with my kids for a hockey tournament, but I met another Joey, Italian name. I asked you about him once.
Yeah.
Joey
Liberatore.
Big, strong athlete. I remember he also had a pretty late start in tennis, correct?
I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, he was a heck of a tennis player. I mean, that's no doubt about that. That was great to hear that you worked with him, and I could definitely see some of the traces of the GreatBase in his game for sure.
Yeah, it was my recollection. It was, we didn't start with working with him when he was very young, and Cambridge is, how far is it from Toronto? It wasn't an easy
about
commute.
45 minutes.
Yeah, 45 minutes. Of course, now with traffic, that could be an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Toronto. Well, tell us about junior tennis, and then you must have grinded it out starting on such a late start where you could play college tennis.
Yeah. Basically, I didn't play that many tournaments, and a lot of that was just, because my mom couldn't afford to just send me all over the place, and she didn't have the time to take me to these tournaments. So a lot of it was just, playing on my own and just setting up matches, and then of course being a part of Harry Greenan's junior program. So I was just more drilling and getting instruction through the program, and then play tournaments on a very occasional basis, and then doing the extra on my own, setting up matches. And I remember, the way I loved competing, but what I would do is I would find somebody, that was better than me, just stronger than me. And I would just play that person until I could just dominate them. And a lot of those people were just adults, they were older gentlemen that, were, I'd meet at the club at, 5:00 and just play 2 out of 3 sets. And I would just keep hounding these guys until I could really, start beating them where it wasn't really fun anymore playing them. And then I'd just find the next person. So that was a lot of my match play, was just getting experience like that. Then, I, played the high school tennis in Canada. It's smaller teams. There's usually 3 or 4 boys, 3 or 4 girls. So, I didn't even make my high school tennis team the first year. I remember I got beat out by a guy named Danny Del Rio in a challenge match. And, it was like first to 4 games or something, and that was going to determine who was on the team. And anyway, so I got beat out by him, and then, a year later, I got to work, and like that line that you always say, tennis players are born out of defeat. I think it's the Bill Tilden line, but
yeah, Bill Tilden.
It's so true. Yeah, so true. Because that really motivated me to work even harder and figure it out. So, the competition was occasional OTA tournament, a lot of match play, on the weekends and during the summer, and then high school tennis, where, after that freshman year, I started having some more success, and I was really good about finding a good doubles partner and just latching on to that person. And I was able to do that throughout, played with a guy named Steve Lescobar, who was a really good tennis player, and his family, big tennis family. They had their own tennis court at their house. And I played with Dave Anderden, and who, was really strong college tennis player, Bowling Green. And so, yeah, that was pretty much it. It was just, so thankful that the Greenan family was, had tennis in Cambridge that was really advanced. Like looking back to what's there now, which tennis doesn't really exist in Cambridge anymore, other than the summer club at Victoria Park. There's no winter tennis anymore, which is really sad. But
no indoor courts, or?
Yeah, there was some indoor courts back with the Greenans, and then they moved on to a bigger club in Kitchener, and then the club in Cambridge it was a bubble in Cambridge, and that kind of went away, and then and that was it. That was pretty much it. And now there's barely any tennis that I know of. Definitely not in Cambridge. There's no winter tennis. There's no indoor tennis. And in Kitchener, because even their club in Kitchener eventually went away. So now I know Harry's working in Guelph. So not too far away, but for kids in Cambridge that want to play tennis, I mean, there really isn't anything available for them, which is it's sad.
I want to go back to one point you just made for our listeners. I know we have a lot of parents that listen to our podcast. To play the same person over and over and over again. Jimmy Connor is arguably from the best age group ever. He just lists off the players from his age group that were all top 10 players in the world. And Connor said, always play your age group. And he said, what about playing up? Always play your age group. Beat a guy serving valiant, beat a guy a different way, beat a guy 3 different ways. I, years ago, perennial tennis bum in Boca Raton, a gal by the name of Karen O'Kennica, who I knew from upstate New York, she became a tennis pro at Boynton Beach, not too far from Boca. So feeling really good about myself. I beat the number 5 junior in Finland. Of course, at that time, there was only 4 players in Finland. but anyway, she said, hey, can you come back in the afternoon and play a match? I said, yeah. So I came back and I played a 49-year-old priest and got beat. He was Father D. I mean, he was good. He played at Cornell. And I remember he had a win over Richard Raskin, who later became Renee Richards. And I played him every Tuesday for a long time. And he's just one of those guys, playing places right off the ocean. The wind is blowing, and he could hit side spin and slice and lob and dink and dice. And but one thing was that very few people would play him because of the macho ego. And that's so prevalent today. And then what I did is I just razzed guys into playing him. Says, you go play that guy. And I was raw. I started playing really full time at 19. So, but I think that's a major problem. Today was mostly on the email. I'm contacting people I know in Charlotte. It's a young girl who's now top 10 in the 12. Just to try to go through the club team at UNC Charlotte to find matches. I think that's one of the toughest things. I think everybody wants to play someone better now, and move up. And then tennis people become so cliquey. I mean, I'm always barking at players when they're, you get a 18-year-old hitting with a 14-year-old, or even a more advanced player hitting with an intermediate. If the intermediate misses, it's your fault. But that's really smart. The parents need to make note of that. And I think most places now don't have a ladder, where you can just call people up and play, and you really need to have a telephone list. And I think when people look at tennis, more practice sets were made when people just take one private lesson a week. So you found your way to Michigan.
Yep, I did. Yeah. And once I heard, that kind of heard that these junior tennis players in Cambridge were getting scholarships to colleges in the U.S. and they were able to continue playing tennis for another 4 years. I mean, that was it. The dream was set. The goal was there for me. And that's what I wanted to do. As soon as I kind of got a better understanding of college tennis, I didn't care about the education part. It was just I can play tennis for another 4 years, and that's all that I wanted to do once that goal was set. And then it was just working towards that and continuing to do what I was doing, which was just be a part of the junior program. And then try to find additional matches and practice as much as I could on my own. And I definitely was being led and guided in a direction. But a lot of it was, self-motivation, just going and doing the extra work. And I was fortunate that there were people around that wanted to do the work as well. Like Dave, like I mentioned, he was so great to me. He'd always be willing to practice and play ghost doubles and just, play sets. There was just a lot of people at that time like that. There was a guy named Don Rope who was Tim Horton's roommate.
Wow.
Yeah, this guy was an athlete. He was a much older gentleman, really bow-legged. I'll never forget, so bow-legged. And he was a high school PE teacher at the high school that I went to. He was retired. By the time I met him, he still played tennis on an occasional basis. He was still in great shape, but he was retired. And, I would ask him to play, and he would just literally kick the daylights out of me. I mean, just like you were mentioning, dinking and lobbing and just, oh my gosh. I thought, how the heck can this guy who is that bow-legged, he looked like he just got off a horse every time. I mean, that's how bad it was. I was like, how am I losing to this guy so badly? Like, I couldn't win games. But he was just such a terrific athlete. And he obviously had the fundamentals. He just knew how to hit a ball well and understood the geometry of the court. And he just beat the daylights out of me. That was one guy that I could never find a way to beat. So anyway, and then it got to the point where I went off to college. So I didn't keep playing him, but I don't think I could beat him even in college. There's no way. He just was too smart, too solid. Anyway, but it was great. He's Tim Horton's roommate, which is just in Canada. I mean, Tim Hortons, that's a part of the fabric of our country, so.
Yeah. For our listeners, Tim Horton, if you haven't been in Canada, it's the Dunkin' Donuts of Canada. All these coffee shops. I've always told Canadian kids, hey, do you know the second smartest man is in Canada? And sometimes, well, who's first? Or, well, that's your father. Who's the second smartest? It's Don Cherry, the hockey personality. So he was on Hockey Night in Canada, and everybody in Canada just stops. Like one time when my brother was with the Toronto Maple Leafs, I was up top where up in the press area. And when Don Cherry speaks, everybody stops for like 7-8 minutes. Hockey Night in Canada every Saturday. So you're talking about where the best players are from. And Ron McLean, his sidekick, said, well, this year the best players are, of course, Cherry is pro-Canadian. He's, the TV character years ago, Archie Bunker. He's just Canadian. You got to love the guy. My mother didn't like him because he used to say about my brother that he wore borrowed clothes and combed his hair in the wind. And, he just didn't think an American should be running a NHL hockey team. So Ron McLean goes, the best hockey players this year, the prospects are all from Michigan. And Jerry goes, that's Canada. And of course, I always say if they have Tim Hortons, it's Canada. But, going back to playing seniors, this gentleman you're talking about, some hockey players, they do look like, people say that they look like they're riding a horse. It is a concern people play hockey, because we do this drill when you get on a clay court, kick a boot like you're speed skating. It's one of the first things we do when you get on a clay court, just trying to teach kids to slide. And it is a concern that these kids have skated so much, will they be able to run? But now we know with motor programming, you can teach yourselves to do two different things. But the skating mechanics don't necessarily help with sprinting, but as far as changing direction and balance, there's some way more positives by putting a kid on a pair of skates. But what I call the senior players is this priest that I played with, Father D. He was a typical mushroom. He had the big hat pulled over his ears, and he'd have the band on his elbow, and who are you gonna bet on? The 14-year-old who's got a headband like Nadal and a bag and a racket and shoes. And I mean, some kids were so matched with Babolat that would happen. And they take the role of the spoiler. Shepard Mead wrote in his book, he wrote a book, How to Succeed in Business, or I'm trying to get this right. The point of the title is escaping right now.
How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying.
Without really trying, thanks. Then he wrote a tennis book with the same title, How to Succeed in Tennis Without Really Trying. And he wrote about the spoiler versus stretcher. And juniors are just trying to blast the ball. They don't learn to rally. And with the mushroom, the dinker, I mean, they're going to bring the kid to the net, kid can't overhit him. And that's where kids are in this country, the U.S., they're traveling all over the country playing these tournaments, and they can't beat people in their backyard. Where is Eastern Michigan? What town?
It's in Ypsilanti. Yeah, it's right beside Ann Arbor.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
With and how was the program when you were there? Who was the coach, and how did that go?
Yeah. So the how I ended up at Eastern Michigan, there was a player on the women's team from Cambridge named Kim Straker. We were in our junior program together, and she was already there, and she encouraged me to reach out to the men's coach, Frank Polito. And Frank's been in college tennis a super long time and highly successful. He's had stops at Kansas and Georgia, and now he's the head women's coach at Cleveland State. Just a great guy and great coach. So yeah, I reached out to Frank and sent him a VHS tape of me playing, and he kind of just said, "Hey, if you're willing to walk on your first semester, if you make our top 6, I'll give you a scholarship." So I was willing to take that deal, and I was, I felt like I had a chance to make the team. Kim kind of gave me an idea of the level, and so I worked all summer, saved up enough money to be able to pay for at least a year, and so I did that, and made the top 6 and played there for the rest of my career.
And when did you know that you wanted to be a coach? Have that be your career?
When I was at Eastern Michigan, they made a coaching change my senior year, and that left a vacancy for the head coaching position. And, we didn't have an assistant coach or anyone to fill in. So I really wanted to have a strong year. I loved the guys on the team, and I helped recruit a lot of the guys that were there, and it was my senior year. So, I asked the guys, "Hey, it doesn't look like they're in a hurry to hire somebody. Would you be okay if I coach the team, just organize the practices and do the track workouts and just kind of take the reins?" And they were great. Those guys were great guys. They wanted to do that. And so I was working on the weekends with a guy named Paul Cruz, who was Chuck Creasy's former assistant coach at Clemson. And he had a huge influence on me because he was basically, on the weekends, he was just putting me through Clemson's program. He was teaching me all the drills that they were doing, and the track workouts, and just, this guy was amazing. He was really, and he was honest with me. He just told me straight. I would complain, be frustrated that I wasn't having more success, and I would, tell him, "Hey, I'm working so hard," and I'll never forget. He said, "Well, it's not about working hard. I mean, that's a part of it, but what are you willing to sacrifice to reach your goals? Are you willing to not go out? Are you willing to, wake up early and practice early, get to bed earlier, eat right?" He really kind of opened my eyes to, there's a lot more to this than just working harder than your teammates, so he had a big influence on me. And, at that point I was all in with, what they were doing at Clemson. He gave me that book. I think it's Chuck's book, like Total Tennis Training.
Yeah. So I've got a copy of that book. We use that, the program I ran where you could get a college degree. We had that as a mandatory read for students.
Yeah. So I used that as the manual, so for that fall semester all the way until January, we were just basically just cut and paste Total Tennis Training, and I just felt like, okay, maybe this is a calling for me to coach. The guys were really receptive, and I just love that there was a roadmap to do this. And so we hired a coach. We got through that season, and then I kind of made up my mind. Okay, I want to stay in tennis and get on the coaching side. So
what did you study? What did you study when you were at Eastern Michigan?
Eastern Michigan, I did. I was just playing tennis. That was really what I was studying. But I got a degree in communication and a minor in psychology. And I, like I said before, it really wasn't about the academic side. It was just, I want to play tennis as long as I can, possibly do it.
Mark Twain, the American philosopher, don't let the classroom interfere with your education. With such an early start. Such an early start. That's amazing. Where did you go from there?
So from there, I actually started coaching. My senior year finished in April, and then I started coaching at a high school, Ypsilanti High School. That was great. I just kind of got to get a taste of high school tennis and just, basically just working with beginners. And then I just started reaching out to everybody, and anybody. And a friend of mine, Derek Racine, was also from Cambridge. He's a part of the Green and, tennis family. He was coaching at the University of Mobile in Alabama. It's an NAI school. And at the time it was a real powerhouse, and he was coaching men and women. So, I reached out to him and was just begging him for any opportunity. He didn't actually have anything, but then later in the summer, there was an opportunity to work as basically a student assistant, and that's where I started. So I worked with Derek, and he was just so gracious. He let me work with the teams like a head coach. He would work with one team one day, and I'd be working with the other team, and then we would switch. So I was getting an opportunity to lead a team, and a lot of that's, on him, just, his trust that I could do that. And he's just not a guy that micromanaged, he just was like, look, okay, you want to do this, then just go ahead and go for it, So that was just amazing. That was invaluable, just to get in the trenches right away and not having. I was relying on the Chuck Creasy's total tennis training. That was getting me through everything. So,
how old were you when you became? You've been at Baylor 23 years. How old were you when you became the head coach at Baylor?
28.
28, but you actually. Why don't you list off the other schools that you worked at before you went to South Alabama?
So I was at University of Mobile, and then Northwestern in Evanston, Illinois. Then I went to South Alabama, so back to Mobile. And then from South Alabama, I got the Baylor job.
But you had a lot of success at South Alabama. But how about working at Northwestern?
Yeah, Northwestern, it was just so different than being at University of Mobile. At Mobile, I was just given the opportunity to lead a team, which was, I didn't earn it. I definitely didn't deserve it, but it was just, I think I was kind of on the path to be a head coach. And then when I went to Northwestern, I had to be an assistant coach and understand, okay, I'm just assisting with this program, I'm not leading it. So that was just so different. The kids on that team were great. Really, the head coach, Lisa Foreman, recruited a great recruiting class, really good young talent. So it was fortunate to work with just high character kids that were really strong players, but it was just such a different experience than when I was at Mobile, but it was good. What that did for me, those 2 years, that year at Mobile, the year at Northwestern, that kind of opened my eyes to, okay, I want to become a head coach. sooner than later. I felt like I was better in the role of leading than assisting. And, so that, and it also at the landscape at that time, and I still think it's kind of the same now, and maybe it goes in cycles, but I felt like I better like navigate my coaching career, better think outside the box, because I don't think I can go be an assistant, for a long period of time, and a lot of that just because I was young and brash and, just, big ego and, just, I didn't see the value in being an assistant and just waiting and learning, and maybe some of that is just, if like, for instance, I thought, well, if Andy Brandy would take me on his staff, even as a volunteer, I would leave my head coaching job at South Alabama to do that, because I had so much respect for Brandy and his success, at Florida and with pro players. And I just knew he had a way better understanding of the sport than I did. And that's, that opportunity never came to work with someone like Andy or Jeff Moore or, Chuck Creasy. I think I could have been an assistant if an opportunity to work with one of those guys came available.
So when you were at Mobile, the NAIA school, you were coaching both men and women. Were you looking to coach women, or were you just looking for an opportunity? How did you get connected with women's tennis versus men's tennis?
Yeah, it was a little bit easier to coach the guys at that time. I was closer in age, and I just got along with those guys so well. I became like really good friends with a guy named Leif Meinica, who was on the men's team, and it was just easier. I still enjoyed coaching women. I just looked at it like, hey, it's tennis. We're trying to win. We got a common goal, and we just got to help prepare these teams. Whether they're men or women. But how I got on the women's track was after Mobile, had an opportunity to work at Northwestern, and the salary was $7,500. And then I had another opportunity to work at William and Mary for the men's coach, and that opportunity was $3,000. So, but there was, both jobs had the opportunity to do some lessons. And Northwestern came back to me and said, look, we'll pay you $10,000. And that was basically it. Then I the rest is history. $3,000 got me over the top,
It's interesting. You have to survive. The late Andy Brandy, we dedicated a podcast to Andy. Certainly he coached the women, but anybody on campus, and Andy Jackson was a coach at that time. And, he spoke very highly of Andy. He goes, it's just when he walks in, it's like everybody knew that he wasn't large, but he was large and in charge. And it's amazing what he accomplished. Leif Meineke, did he play? I mean, he actually has come to our place a couple times. Actually, his son just won a national doubles title with a young boy, Mason Vaughn, who he started out. He's now part of Dave Anderson's program. But yeah, where was that where you met him?
Yeah, so at the University of Mobile, he was a freshman. Yeah, he was a freshman there, and just such a hard worker. And, it was amazing that he ended up at Mobile. That I think he played there for 2 years, and then he ended up transferring to Boise. I was trying to get him to transfer to Northwestern and play for Paul Torselli. But, I guess him coming to Northwestern and beating Torselli's number one guy wasn't enough for him to sign him. So he ended up at Boise and being an All-American there. But it's pretty funny because I was like, Torch, I don't know what more you want the guy to do, I think that's a pretty good sign when he can beat the top guy. But
yeah, he's with his wife. They're based at T-Bar M in Dallas. Well, you obviously know that. But yeah, I'm always puzzled. Now there's these clinics, how to coach women. I mean, I always say, the ball doesn't know it's being hit by a woman or a man, and it's like this thing about, well, that's an ATP forehand, that's a WTA forehand. Tennis is tennis, physics is physics. I just don't get that. What would your comment on that be?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that in regards to the mechanics and the strategy and just even the mindset, the mentality, I think that's all the same. I do think there's some nuance, in just the way you say things, and I do feel like, and you've said this many times, it's just the amount of praise versus criticism or just coaching. It's not even criticism; it's just coaching. I think that's probably the nuance, but I don't know. I mean, I see the way guys are getting coached now, and I'm like, gosh, there's really no difference, at all, because it's all soft. Everything is, there's a lot of smoke being blown all over the place. There's not a lot of honesty.
I've heard this for years that, say in basketball, the one difference between men and women, if there's just a crack in the door, in other words, the door's open and the guys can get in, they're just going to go in and scrimmage. The macho male ego, play one-on-one, and play who's king for the day. But I have been told that that's one difference, that typically the women are not as apt to practice on their own. But I think I think it's really gone down where they just have that interference with the cell phone. It's like, put that cell phone down and find a way to hit more balls.
You're right.
So you had to be very successful at South Alabama. How did you get the job at South Alabama? I mean, I know from reading your bio that in talking to you, in talking to your assistants, that you're successful at South Alabama. Obviously, to get a job at one of the Power 5 schools. But tell us a little bit about the transition from Northwestern to South Alabama and your progression there.
Yeah, so when I was at Northwestern, I was in a grocery store, and there was a gentleman in the produce section that had University of South Alabama tennis T-shirt on. So I went up to him and I said, hey man, I just came from Mobile, or did you play at South Alabama? And he said, yes. And actually, he's like, I coached there, but now, I've got out of coaching. I'm in finance here in Chicago. And this guy's name's Roger Mills. So we became friends, and I said, look, if you want to, hit some balls, you can come use the facility anytime. So we developed a friendship, and eventually he mentioned to me that there may be an opportunity at South Alabama where Scott Novak, the coach at the time, who was coaching the men and women, that there may be an opportunity to be a head coach on the women's side. That Scott was going to focus more on the men's side, and I said, yeah, I would be interested for sure. So that basically set the wheels in motion, and I talked to Scott, and who was a tremendous coach. He did a phenomenal job there on the men's and women's. I mean, his success there was pretty remarkable. So got an opportunity to go there first as an assistant coach for the men and women. And then kind of mid-season, Scott wanted to focus more on the guys because both teams were super young that year. This was back in 99. And he said, why don't you just take the women? You're going to end up, overseeing this program next year anyway. So just go ahead and take them mid-year. So did that. We had an amazing season, like kind of a Cinderella year where we made the quarterfinals. We upset UCLA at their place. We upset Pepperdine. And then we lost in the quarters to Florida to Coach Brandy's team. And that was basically the start of my, head coaching career, was that mid-year deal at South Al.
So because you won, you could make the jump to Baylor. Do you remember the name Derek Tarr?
I do. Yeah.
He played at South
Was he
Alabama,
at
correct?
Did he? Okay. I don't know if he was South Al or if he was at UAB. But I know that name.
Yeah. Anyway, he was top 100 in the world, and yeah,
Mhm.
you're right. He played at one of those schools in Alabama, and
Mhm.
he was. I mean, to be ranked 100 in the world, you have to be a great tennis player. But it came out where it was big in the news where with Martina Navratilova, who was dominating at the time, would she beat the number 100 guy in the world? I thought he's from South Alabama. So, what about the interview process at Baylor? How did that go?
Well, I knew about Baylor because we played them my last year at South Al. We came to Waco and we played Baylor in Waco, and we played TCU in Fort Worth. So I got a little more familiar with Baylor's campus, and just I saw the beginnings of what the facility is now, and I was really impressed. I thought, wow, this is a university that's on the rise. The tennis program, it looks like there's they got full commitment from the athletic department. So it was definitely a school that I thought, okay, this is definitely a place that I would love to coach one day if the opportunity ever comes about. So then to fast forward a few months later in the summer, I hear that the job is open. I'm actually in Austin working at the tennis camp with Jeff Moore, who's the legendary coach of the University of Texas women's team. So I called Matt Canole at the time because I was the only person I knew at Baylor, and I met him when South Alabama played Baylor. I met him. He watched the match, and I met him in the lobby area after the match, so we got to know each other a little bit. But so I called him and said, "Hey, I'm in Austin. I'll drive down right now, and I'd love to interview for the job." And he basically said, "Yeah, look, we're going to go in a different direction, and we'll call you. Basically, we'll call you. Don't call me again. Basically, So I never thought about it again. I just thought, okay, I'm not going to get that job. And about 6 weeks later, he called me, and I was actually about to take the job at Louisville, and he said, "Look, I think the timing's right now. Like, yeah, they're interested. How soon can you get here?" And I told him, "Hey, I'm about to accept this job at Louisville. I need to get there, basically, at the latest tomorrow." So that happened, and I met with the AD, gentleman by the name of Tom Stanton at the time, and he was amazing because he was a two-sport athlete at Baylor. So he's a baseball and basketball player. And what I loved about Tom was that he'd been in the trenches. He'd been in the battles against these Southwest Conference schools, and he had a real hatred for Texas and Texas A&M, and these schools that had beaten up on Baylor over the years. And I'll never forget in the interview, he just said, "Hey, what are we going to do about Texas? We've never beaten them in women's tennis, and I lose sleep about thinking about that." And I just told him, "Don't worry about Texas. We're going to go after Stanford." And that was basically how I got the job. He said, "Okay, let's go."
Great answer. I lived in Tyler, Texas for 10 years. So I was in Waco for a junior tournament on the Baylor campus in the 1980s. Wow, that place now. I mean, I would think from a recruiting standpoint, you just have to get people on campus to see that place. It's amazing. And if you've been there 23 years, I mean, obviously you've seen a lot of building. What was it like when you got there, facility-wise?
When I got, you could see the athletic department so we have the street, University Parks Drive, that goes right in the middle of campus. On one side of it, it's all academics, and the other side, it's all athletics. So at the time, when I was driving up that street, you could see, a few athletics buildings, And then, you would see some of the academic side, 23 years later, it's unrecognizable. There's just millions and millions of dollars of buildings on both sides, so over the years, it just kept adding more and more. And it's just such an impressive campus. Even 23 years ago, if you go right into the core of the campus, it was just beautiful. There's a lot of green space, and there's red brick everywhere, and now it's just gotten bigger. And the facilities on the athletic side are just state of the art. There's a new business school on the academic side. There's a new science building. But we have a new welcome center that just in the last year or so was just built. So really have everything you could ask for in a college campus at Baylor, and then the city of Waco has grown so much. That's on top of the campus growing both athletically and academically, Waco has gone through a real transformation. And a lot of that has to do with Baylor's growth, but also with Magnolia's growth. That's Chip and Joanna Gaines. That's their company. And, what they've done for the community, it's just remarkable.
No, we were there, as I said a few weeks ago. Really enjoyed it. Tell us about Mark Hurd.
Yeah, well, Mark, I mean, what a generous man, a generous family. Paula continues to be a big part of the Baylor family. They've just given so much to Baylor and to our tennis program and just the tennis in general. So Mark played for Baylor. He had opportunities to play at a lot of different schools, and just fell in love with Baylor and the opportunity to kind of turn the program around. And he was just a go-getter. I mean, that guy, man. He's competitive as they come. He wanted to see us be the best tennis program in the country, and so his support was just so vital, especially in getting the facility to where it is today, and helping us host the NCAA championships back in 2015, and now we're going to host it again. I mean, he's had his fingerprints all over our university, both academically and athletically.
And he passed away how many years ago? He was a very young man.
Yeah, no, just a few years ago. Yeah, and not that long ago.
Tell us a little bit about Baylor, size of the school, enrollment.
Yeah, Baylor's has about 14,000 undergraduate students. And then we have 2,000 or 3,000 graduate students. We have a law school that's in Waco, a medical school that's in Houston. We're really known for business, the med school, and like I said, the law school. But really every degree you could ask for. It's a nationally recognized university. It's ranked in the top 100 academically in the nation, and then athletically, we've had for being a smaller private university, our athletics have really been able to compete with everybody, with the big state schools, and we've won national championships in men's tennis and women's basketball, men's basketball. Football's been, been inconsistent, but there's years that we've been, conference champions and have been to Sugar Bowl and have done very well. So as a whole, the athletic department's been highly successful.
On these podcasts, we go back and say, well, what type of baby food did you like? But at 28 years of age, go back to day one. What was your start like at Baylor?
How was my start, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Leaving South Al was really tough because we had a good team. We had a team that I felt like could really make some deep runs. I didn't think it was sustainable because I could already see the way college athletics was moving. and the way recruiting was starting to change with just, social media growing and just the internet, kind of booming in Europe. I could see that recruiting was going to change, but I left a really good team at South Al, and then I inherited a team where the good players, the stronger players, the all Big 12 players graduated or they transferred. So I was, I had 4 players on the roster when I took the job. It was kind of mid-July. And I already signed all these players at South Al, and it wasn't like it is now where you could get, in and out of the portal for, coaching change or really for a lot of different reasons. But back then it was just really tough. So I kind of had to, start all over again in recruiting and just kind of put a roster together. And I didn't want to, I wasn't really in the mood to be patient at the time. Cause like I said, we had a good team at South Al and things were humming. And I didn't really want to just, go and not fill the roster and not compete. I didn't feel like that would be a good way to start. So yeah, we found, players that really wanted to be at Baylor, maybe kids that I overlooked at South Al. And we just kind of put the team together, and it was a ragtag group. I think we had a losing record that first year, but we were able to compete. It was the start of putting together an identity. We had to get that identity formed, and that first year was so critical for that.
With recruiting, talk to us a little bit about recruiting now. I mean, like having lived in Texas, I think most Texas kids, they want to go to Texas. And it's like the gentleman you mentioned, let's beat Texas. And how much, and how has recruiting changed over the years?
Yeah, it's just gotten so competitive. And there's so much strategy to it, but one strategy, for instance, is you can just get in on an athlete super early. And if you're early and you're just recruiting them hard, you got a good chance to get that athlete, as long as they don't kind of develop into, a blue chipper where they just going to have so many offers, getting in there early and recruiting often. That's one strategy. What's hard for us at Baylor is, we want to try to get it right, so we're not really recruiting with a strategy. We're more looking at it like we want to make sure that this is the right person that fits the culture and fits our identity as a team, so that makes it a little harder because you can lose some players early because you're not recruiting them. You're not offering them early. You're kind of waiting to see how they progress. And then if you wait longer, you could be in a bigger recruiting war on the back end. So, it's like anything in life. If you want to get it right, it's going to take more time and it's going to take more diligence, And recruiting, unfortunately, right now, it's just a lot of it is just strategy and, tactics. And, a lot of college coaches pressure kids into committing early. They haven't even gone on all of their visits and they're committing early. So, yeah, it's not one of my favorite parts of the game. I'll just be completely honest with you. But when you do find the right person, the right fit, it's great. It's really exciting.
Let me take a shot at Lou Holtz, the football coach. Years ago, incoming players would want to know what are their responsibilities and obligations, and now they want to know what are their rights and privileges. So the portal, if I was a commissioner for the day, it's like, drop the portal. I think my idea of the portal is the coaches. He gives a player a deserving dose of honesty. Their feelings get hurt. They go back to the dorm room, they push a few buttons, and they're on the portal. What's your comment? And I think that's really changed recruiting, correct?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, recruiting freshmen, and this is why I just don't understand why coaches are pressuring kids into making decisions so quickly. I understand they're doing it because they're just trying to get the commitment and move on. But on the other side of it, you want to get the right fit so you don't end up in a situation where the kid gets in the portal. So yeah, it's just unfortunate. And a lot of it, we've lost kids in the portal, and 9 out of 10 times it's just playing time. It's the kid, isn't a starter for us in year one, and they, don't want to hear that, hey, you just got to go and put in more work over the summer and just increase your commitment to the sport, and you'll end up being a starter. A lot of kids struggle with that, so they end up going somewhere else. It's easier,
I sent a text to a mom the other day, and I was just suggesting, a kid's very athletic. He's really improved. He's getting people's attention, but a soccer player pretty late to the game of tennis. And I said, well, if he goes there, he should definitely redshirt, or he's going to ride the pine. And she sent me a text back. What does ride the pine mean? And I should have wrote back. That means he's going to get splinters in his fanny. He's going to sit on the bench. He's going to sit on the bench. No, that's where it'd be great if people realize I want to go in and crack that lineup as a freshman. That's not easy to do.
No, it's really hard. Yeah.
With and what about while we're on the portal, NIL? That's really changing college tennis.
Yeah.
Name, image, and likeness, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's impacting all of college athletics. It's basically it's just you're paying athletes to play. I mean, that's basically what it is. Are there athletes in the history of college athletics that deserve to be paid? Absolutely. There's been some, at Baylor, we had a game changer, once in a lifetime type of athlete, and RG3, Robert Griffin III, who won the Heisman and completely changed the course of our football program. He would probably be someone that deserves some name, image, and likeness resources, but for the vast majority of the athletes, they're getting a college education, being a part of a program, something bigger than themselves, having the coaching staff and the athletics department investing in them, helping them build a network and building skills where they can go take that on to the next thing. I mean, that's pretty invaluable. But, now it's turned into pay for play and it just, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to change now. I think it's going to only continue to grow and some version of NIL will continue to be in college athletics, for the rest of the way, and probably revenue share as well.
Well, there's always two sides to the story. I've heard many times, well, the basketball coach has got a $400,000 annual contract with Nike. And when they're on TV, they're wearing dress shoes, but they're getting paid to wear Nike shoes. Mm-hmm. And then there's a kid on the team who can't afford to go to his uncle's funeral. So there's always two sides to it.
That's right.
But then, private schools, public schools, the schools with the large, like Ohio State, Texas, years ago, and I still have this laminated. I just wanted to get a rejection letter. I was training all these coaches, and we used to call our program Tennis Tech, but for a good part of the year, it was Resume Tech. And I applied to be the head football coach at the University of Texas. And, I said, well, even though I only played Pop Warner football, I think I can hire the right team to lead the University of Texas football program. And my goal was to get a rejection letter. I mean, just trying to people, it's no problem to hear the word no. But his last name was Dodds, athletic director at Texas for a long time.
The lost God.
The lost Dodds. But yeah, I mean, some schools are so wealthy. You hear things now that people, actually Scotty Perelman, he said on our podcast, I think he said that they offer over $10 million for the high school kid to be the quarterback at Florida. But it's, I think going back to the portal, the football coach at Colorado, the famous player, also a two-sport athlete, Deion Sanders, he said, I'm not recruiting a high school kid. I'm going to go right to the portal because, I mean, there's a lot of football players that have redshirted and they've got a lot of really good coaching. So someone who's perhaps been a backup or, a depth chart, they're not the number one linebacker, the number one wide receiver. But yeah, I think it's going to get tougher for high school kids to enter college sports.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
With, I want to ask you about some players and some coaches. What about the NCAAs coming up? What do you think of the tournament being in the fall? It's just like anything. There's probably two sides of that, right? Pros and cons. Yeah,
I think the bright side to it is that athletes that are really goal oriented and committed to their tennis, are definitely taking their summers a little more serious, and maybe rethinking, taking an extended break over the summer or just playing tournaments only. I know for my team, the girls have been way more open to staying in Waco and working on their skills during the summer. And a big part of that is with the motivation to make the NCAA individual tournament. That was happening, before the individual tournament was moved to the fall, but I think it's definitely shined some light on the importance of the summer, because it's just, so immediate there with the fall.
Yeah, for the listeners, for years and years, it was a team championship for a week and then the individual for the week after. Mm-hmm. And one complaint would have been that the players that go deep in the individual are just exhausted. Or I should say the teams that go deep in the first week are just exhausted. But one thing I would vote on too, commissioner of tennis, I would in charge of college tennis, is that if an international player wins the NCAAs, they should be able to play the U.S. Open. But I know in recent years there's been some, really top players that they didn't play the individual because of that. They said, well, I'll just go play a pro tournament or I'll rest. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, where the winner gets the wild card of the U.S. Open?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if the USTA is benefiting from college tennis tremendously, I mean, it's become their farm system for pro tennis. And, part of that is, support it, whether an American or non-American win the event. I mean, you're supporting your farm system basically.
I think college tennis, sorry to interrupt. I think with college tennis, I think it's great that we have foreign players. I mean, where would we be without all these foreign players coming over and so many of them stay and coach? You have a thought to finish, or I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But I agree with you. I think they should open that back up again and allow whoever the winner is to have that opportunity to play that event. Whether it's even if they gave them an opportunity to be in the quali, that's fine. But it's just showing that you're supporting college tennis as a whole, and not making it about American tennis. It's really like you said, the international kids are really enhancing the farm system for the USTA. And without the international kids, the level would not be what it is, and a lot of these kids would end up turning pro way sooner, which is probably not a good thing.
No, what we simply need to do is do a better job. I think people just think they needed, instead of criticizing the USTA and such, is that what do we all do individually to make tennis better? And we Americans need to do a better job at developing American players. We have to thank you again for Matt Knoll being a guest on the podcast. So we've had all sorts of people tell us they loved listening to Matt. So day one, when you show up at Baylor, he's there. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Man, what a terrific human being and just an amazing tennis coach. And I couldn't have had a better person to work alongside for 17 years.
Wow.
He was just so much fun to be around and learn so much from him. And it just, yeah, he was just tremendous. You know, he's just truly a character coach and just funny too. I mean, that guy is just a riot. You know, he's brilliant coach, really understood how to push the right buttons, understood how to get a team ready for you know, the rigors of the NCAAs and then evolved too. You know, I saw him evolve quite a bit over that time without losing his principles as a head coach, you know. So just so thankful. I was really blessed to work with a guy like that. You know, he's in my mind one of the best to ever do it on the men's side.
Being up here in Winter Green, Virginia, I tease the people I meet from Virginia, say, you know, this is the land of Thomas Jefferson, and Tommy and I went to high school together. But Jefferson, you know, he said the two qualities that one needs to be a, you know, whatever world-class human being is integrity and humor. Integrity and humor. And no, he had some great lines on our podcast. How'd it go, Yvonne? Bad players, good players, great players?
Yes, it goes, bad players want to be left alone. Good players want to be told they're good. And great players want to be told the truth.
Yeah, there was just some things like, I got to go write that on the bathroom wall. Oh, you know, winners and losers. He obviously won and won big. It's not easy to you know, take a program and build a national championship culture.
It's really amazing what he did. Yeah, I just got to see it, you know, firsthand, and you know, had the pleasure to be in on a lot of conversations, a lot of, you know, just strategic type conversations, you know, and whether it was recruiting a guy or, you know, maybe a lineup change or, you know, maybe something they needed to do differently in practice. I mean, he let me in on a lot of that stuff, and I'm just really thankful that I was able to just, yeah, be a part of it.
You must have worked camps together.
We did. Yeah, we did camps together for all those years, and yeah, had a lot of good stories at the camps too. And yeah, it was a lot of, you know, we were working very hard and we were grinding, you know, long days, you know, 12, 14-hour days, but it was a lot of fun because, like you said, I mean, he had the humor part of it too.
I did a little homework. The first YouTube clip I looked at on Baylor tennis, it was Baylor. I think it was round of 8. You won 4-3, and Daniel Collins was playing for Virginia. You probably could tell me what year that was. 2015, maybe 2015.
2015, yeah. 2015, yeah.
With so you obviously met so many players and so many coaches. Tell us a story about the player who was unseeded, won the NCAAs.
Yeah. So, well, I'll tell you real quickly about the Danielle Collins. You know, it came down to, he was playing 3 doubles. Okay. So, you know, future, what was she, top 15 in the world?
Yeah.
She was playing 3 doubles for them. And I'll never forget, you know, we were preparing for that match. And I don't know how many ways I could tell the 2 girls that were playing 3 doubles for us, you know, with Blair Schenkel, who's a hell of a player, and Kaya Jenneret. And I don't know how many different ways that I could explain it to them, but you are not hitting a ball to Danielle Collins, and I mean, I think I had him right on the dry erase. I think I showed him on film. I think I had him, write it on the racket. It was like, do not hit a ball to her. Literally, we're going to make her partner beat us. And, thankfully, we didn't stray from that plan. And if we did, it didn't take long to get back on track. But so that was fun thinking back to that. She did not touch a ball other than the serve and return. So yeah,
that was a 4-3 match too.
That 3 doubles was won in a tiebreaker, and that was it. I mean, that match really I knew, like a lot of college tennis matches, the margins are super small. It's going to come down to who wins the doubles point, especially at that stage of the tournament. You're talking about a Sweet 16 match. Then 2 days later we lose to USC and we lose the doubles point in tiebreaker. So many of those matches come down to tiebreakers and doubles. But yeah, I was proud of that team. They just did such a remarkable job. And I mean, Virginia was just better than us. I mean, you look at our lineup and their lineup, they had some absolute studs on that team.
Off the top of your head, when did it change where I understand Division III is changing now, where the doubles used to be 3 points? When did D1? I know Paul Scarpa had a lot to do with that, former coach. Tell me the name.
Yeah,
of the
I think
school.
I think it changed in either 2000 or 2001.
Okay, yeah, Furman. He coached at Furman forever.
Yeah, maybe right around the early 2000s, it went from the 3-point system to 1 point.
Which one's better? Which one do you prefer? If you had to vote?
I like the 3 points because, like, basically knew, okay, if the time we're putting in the doubles, it's gonna show some way, somehow it's gonna show up, so even in the old system, you could steal one of the doubles and the work you're putting in doubles is paying off. But, right now it's winner take all, and that makes it tough. And now with one set, it's just the smallest margins, there was years where, we didn't have big servers and we literally, didn't spend any time on doubles because we were just getting crushed on the return of serve. So it's just so hard to be like, we're going to put time into this and then it's not going to reap any kind of benefit, but the 1 point system. So
of course,
it is what it is.
You go in and you win 3 doubles. I used to say years ago that you really could see the true coaching if you see kids serving, volleying, coming in, playing great doubles.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a pretty tough lead to overcome if the team wins all 3 doubles matches. It is great for the spectators. It's a flip of a coin. It's very exciting to watch these sprints playing sets to 6. But yeah, to me, the more emphasis that could be placed on doubles, the better.
Yeah, and I liked it when it was at the end of the match. So you play your 6 singles and then you'd have these 3 doubles at the end, and that was really cool because if you put in the time in the doubles, you could turn a match around. I think there was a match between Texas and Florida. I'm pretty sure Florida was up 4-2, right? 4-2 in the singles, and then Texas went on to win all 3 doubles and win the match 5-4.
And for our listeners, the matches used to be all full sets.
That's right.
Full 3 sets. Although for Chuck Creasy is someone who's always fighting the good fight for not shortening matches. But for the longest time, I think it was 15 years that college matches were no ad. But the college coaches didn't complain because you could play as many matches as you wanted. So you weren't limited to, I think, 25 days, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so the unseeded player wins the NCAAs. That doesn't happen very often.
No, it was amazing. Susanna Zemanova She came to Baylor in 2004, 2005 season. So freshman from Slovakia, from Košice, Slovakia, and barely spoke any English. Had an encyclopedia. Sorry, had a Slovak English dictionary everywhere she went, and was really struggling with the transition to college. Let alone Baylor, a school like Baylor, but wanted to leave after the first week. Really struggled. Was deeply homesick. Left her boyfriend, the whole deal. So, if she could have figured out a way to get to the Greyhound station, we wouldn't be talking about a NCAA champion who was undefeated. But I told the team, I said, look, this kid has to make it here. Like, you do not help her leave. Like, she's got to make it. You got a choice. You're going to help her stay and we're going to win championships, or you help her leave and we're all going to be losing. And anyway, the kids did a great job. Her teammates they went above and beyond to help her overcome the homesickness. And then, within about a month or so, she plays her first college tournament. I'll never forget. She wins the first set 6-0. She loses second set 6-0, and then loses the third set 6-0. Played a kid, Miller, from Georgia Tech, and it was in the fall. It was super hot. It was actually at home, and and Miller was a heck of a player. She's an All-American, so it wasn't like she lost to just anybody. But that was where her tennis was, very erratic, very up and down. So over the course of the freshman year, we just started getting her to be more solid and learning how to structure points and make more balls and develop an underspin backhand and develop a kick serve. Her serve was not something that was a strength, that's for sure. So the season, we progressed through the season, and she sneaks her way into the NCAA tournament, individual tournament. And we lose in the team event. We lost in the round of 16 to Florida. And in the match, she's winning. She sprains her ankle really badly. It looked to me like it was really badly, but the trainer has to tape it up, and she's just basically kind of hobbling her way through the rest of the match. Well, I'm thinking, she can't play the NCAA individual. I mean, she can, she was hobbling through this match. There's no way. Well, we had a few days there where she could, get some treatment, and I just asked her. I said, "Look, I don't want you to. If your ankle doesn't feel good, I don't want you to play, because she's a freshman. Last thing I want to do is this ankle turn into something really bad." And she really wanted to play. She was like, "No, coach, I'm playing," and I was shocked because, when she got to Baylor, she was dealing with the homesickness, but she was not pushing through anything. Anything that was hard, she was quitting. But now, fast forward many months later, she was the one pushing. I was the one trying to pull her back. So, I thought, okay, that's great. She's going to give it a go, and we'll see how it goes. So she just, played with her ankle taped up, and, gets through the first match. It's a close match, gets through the second match. Well, as the tournament's progressing, it looks like she's going to, get to the final, which was just amazing. She ends up playing the player from Florida that she lost to in the team event. She ends up playing her in the semis and beats her pretty handily. Well, now she's in the final against, basically the most dominant player that year, who was Audra Cohen, who had, won something like 55 singles matches that year, only like 3 losses. I don't think she was the number one seed in the tournament, but in my mind, she was definitely the favorite to win that championship. So, Zizi, Susanna, her nickname was Zizi. She's in the final there and loses the first set. 6'4", and I wasn't on court with her during the tournament. I was on court with some other kids that were in the individual, but of course I was watching every match with her. Loses the first set, and I just felt, this is, the art of coaching. I just felt like, what, it's time. I'm going to have to go in there, and she just needed to hear a different voice. But, and I also thought, I felt this way at Mobile, how many times you're going to have a chance to win a national championship? I don't care if it's NAI, I don't care, JUCO, whatever it is, it's not easy to win, championships, and definitely not national championships. So I just felt like, hey, I want to go down there and just get a different voice and leave, no stone unturned. So I went down there and I really kind of, got in her face, but I was pretty like, she got the sense of urgency that she needed to really start playing her tail off because, this was the moment, and, she really started playing. She really started going for her shots and started running, she, not that you guys don't love this, but she started running around her forehand. Running around her backhand, but really did it with the whole mindset of getting forward, just getting forward and just getting in control of the points, not letting Audra control the points. And that's how she wins the second set that way. Third set's an absolute battle. They both were just throwing down, and Zizi ends up winning. I don't know if it was 6-4 or 7-5 in the third, but just really surreal to see, a kid that, I didn't think would, or a kid that wanted to leave in the first week or two to then end up pushing through and winning a national championship, and the first unseeded player to ever do it. Was really, really just amazing, but
I remember Audra Cohen's game. She grew up when my kids grew up in Florida and coached by Bill Clark, kind of like a Sabalenka. She just big, strong, powerful, more raw than refined. But
that's right.
Yeah.
Thank God for that. Thank God for that slice backhand she had.
Yeah.
Because that was really the. She didn't trust her topspin backhand, so that really opened the door for Susanna to get to really get into it and come forward and start really taking control of the points.
Tennis math, too much calculation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
How about
and she was worn out. She Audra was worn out from running around her backhand. That's a lot of extra steps in a 3.5 hour match. So yeah, just an incredible match though.
Tell us about another Slovakian who's played for you. We had the fortune, pleasure, Ivan and I, to meet Lenka Brusova. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. Lenka Brusova.
Let me read this off. I'm sorry to interrupt. 274 wins, 154 in singles, 120 in doubles, and five-time All-American. Actually, her speech when she was inducted in the Baylor Hall of Fame. I listened to that today. Yeah, that's somebody who knows how to win. Wow.
Yeah.
Tell us about her.
Lenka's a winner. Yeah, Lenka's just an absolute winner. She's every bit as big time a player as Susanna Zemanova was. Lenka really was the greatest team player we've ever had. She would just do anything to help the team win. He probably has more 6-0 sets than any player in the history of our program, men or women. She was super efficient. But yeah, just what a big heart, I'll never forget, first day she was on campus and she came into the Herd Tennis Center. She saw the men's national championship and she looked at me and she said, "Coach, we're going to win one of those." And that was just amazing that, from day one, she set her sights high and was like, that's what we're going for, and really just came down to running out of time. She gave everything she had to help our team win. And her senior year, she was the best player on the number one team in the country. And, we lost a close match to Stanford. It came down to the same type of deal, tiebreaker and doubles. And, but yeah, her career is just remarkable. A lot of winning.
But going back to the AD, you did beat Stanford. You lived up to your word in that interview.
Yeah, we played them 4 times in the NCAA championships. We won 2, lost 2. That last one, that one in 2010 was really tough. I thought like we had our best team, they had their best team, and the margin was super small. But I think back and I would love to have another opportunity to win one. I feel like I'm way better prepared now than I was back then for that opportunity.
With Linka, she tried the pro circuit, had some injuries. I know you said that you wish that she had stayed out there longer, but then she got into the coaching world. I think she was at Tulsa, and now she's been back at Baylor. Tell us a little about that, her story.
Yeah. Oh, Linka, I wish she would have played pro tennis, or she did until she got injured. She had an Achilles tear after coming back from Tommy John surgery that took about a year. So yeah, just amazing. Her journey, her tennis journey is really remarkable. She taught by her dad, then ended up having a lot of success. The federation in Slovakia took them under their wing and took her under their wing, and then she that didn't work out so well. She couldn't play like Hantukova. She wasn't a pure ball striker and over 6 feet tall. She's 5'7" and plays with more spin and has more variety in her game. And college tennis was just such a perfect fit for her. And she was exactly what Baylor needed. We needed someone that was really team oriented and highly motivated. And, we just gave her the opportunity to hone her skills. And yeah, she's great college tennis career. Pro career was short. I wish she would have stayed at it longer, because I have no doubt she would have had a lot of success in the pro game. And then she transitioned to college coaching, and did her amazing job at Tulsa. Worked with some great coaches there. Learned a lot there. She was there for 6 years, and now she's been at Baylor for, I don't know if this is the 5th year or 4 or 5 years at Baylor, and has helped our program so much. The players love her. She's able to give a lot of her perspective from being at Baylor, playing college tennis, and then her experience as a coach and a pro player. So
what is she, maybe 35 now?
Yeah, she's somewhere around there. Yeah.
One of your players was up here for the summer, and at that time, Yvonne and I had not met Lincoln. The player was telling us about the assistant coaches, and she said no one can beat Lincoln. So she still beats the players on the team.
Yeah, she just takes it out on them. I mean, it's so funny. We had our green gold match every Saturday. We have it, and I just throw her in there, and I don't know. I think she's undefeated. Yeah, she hasn't lost a match at Baylor since her freshman year, I think. In practice,
That reminds me of my son. He played for Matt Clore, and I'd always known the name Matt Clore because I coached another kid born in '84, Riley DeHart, but I'd never seen Matt play. And my son said, nobody can beat Matt. So we ended up making a video, and Matt tweaked his game, made a few changes. He was really well taught by his father. But anyway, with Matt, of course, at that time, I think, Matt had 2 children that were both under the age of 2. Now he has 4, but remember my son Connor said he took 4 practice sets in a row from Matt. He said, "That's my greatest accomplishment in tennis." I think puts that up, being 200 ATP or whatever. With what she had this down from her speech. We spent a lot of time with people from the LDS Church, the Mormons. This is one theme of the Mormons that she mentioned. It's not all about me. Why don't you comment on that as far as team philosophy? That was one thing she said in being inducted into the Hall of Fame. The listeners need to know it's not very easy to be in the Hall of Fame. I can name a handful of people that I've worked with that have been inducted into their Hall of Fame, but it's a high honor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she was just a we over me person from day one. Her parents did a great job instilling those type of values in her. And what I always appreciated about her, she would always give credit to the coaches, whether that was assistant coach or strength coach or, anybody that was academic coach, whoever was working with her, she'd always go above and beyond to give them credit, for investing in her and her teammates as well. She pushed her teammates, but also built them up and gave them a lot of credit when they deserved it. And sometimes when they didn't, she's just, she's a really special person, really gets that, this is about something way bigger than herself, and it's still like that, nothing's changed. She's just all about helping these girls grow and learn and just wants to walk with them in their journey now, their tennis journey, so.
Part of her speech, she said it's about growth, not results. But then it was the quote, people believe in what you can be instead of who you are and are willing to take the risk of hurting your feelings are priceless. So it sounds like you might have hurt her feelings. She thanked you and was it McKenna? What was the name of the athletic or the fitness trainer?
Oh, Sean McPherson.
Sean McPherson.
Big influence. Yeah, he was a big influence on her and all of our
really,
players.
She really, she thanked lots and lots of people in her presentation, but she thanked you. And tell us his name one more time.
Sean McPherson.
Is he still there?
No, I wish he was still at Baylor. He made some moves. He worked with Kim Mulkey's basketball teams during that same time that he was working with us, and worked at the University of Texas and University of Kansas. He kind of bounced around a bit, but he's back in the area, so we've been in touch. But he had a huge influence on Lenka and a lot of our student athletes. Like he put, I'm talking no nonsense. I mean, he worked them about as hard as you can be worked, and he was absolutely adored by those players.
Yeah, in her speech, she said she had a story about she had to jump over a hurdle, and the gentleman said it's okay to be scared, but it's not okay to quit. That's one thing. There's just so much content. The listeners should really go and listen to that presentation. YouTube clips are like potato chips. So there was another Hall of Fame speech listed right under hers. So I looked at that and not knowing what sport the woman played. Anna Rayfogala Lyon. She played volleyball. And, she was thanking her parents, and this is great. Paraphrasing. My father would introduce my mother as Smother, and he would introduce himself as Brother. So her parents were Smother and Brother. And the point being, that's what it takes. You need both, perhaps the smothering in love, but the big brother push. That reminds me, I say this all the time about Maria Sharapova, and her father Yuri was obviously a very intense guy, and just being an outsider observing practice, she said at a very young age, I realized my father was for me, not against me. Let me ask you about, what are your thoughts on, I know now you're fortunate to have two, you have Patricia, you can tell us a little bit about her. You have two assistants. Is it a good thing now that it's two paid coaches versus a volunteer? What are the pros and cons of that?
Yeah. Well, we have Patricia Martin, who you got to meet, and Patricia started with us as a volunteer. Left a paid position to come volunteer with us. So, just speaks volumes to her dedication and her willingness to grow and learn. And so she's just been such a huge asset to us, and played at South Alabama for a really great coach, and Jaco Kaiser, South African guy who played at South Al as well. And, you remember how she volleyed, huh? I mean,
yeah.
Could volley.
Definitely. Short, compact, like out of a textbook. She speaks very highly of her South African coach from South Alabama.
Oh yeah. Jaco's a tremendous coach, and I've had a few of his former student athletes work with us. So they've been all great, but none better than Patricia. She's as good as they come. But there was pros and cons. I felt like for our program, we were able to recruit, really passionate young coaches that really wanted to learn. The earning part was secondary, and so they would come to Baylor, do their master's degree, usually in sport pedagogy, and then they would work with our teams. And I did that for 21 years, up until this past year. Patricia was our first paid third coach. So, I think it's great for the coaching industry. I mean, there's more paid positions. I guess the downside is, are there going to be these coaches that are just super passionate and want to go take on a job and kind of just work their way to a paid job? That part of it, those opportunities are going to be less than before, because now, as a coach, you're going to probably want to hire a little bit more proven coach if you're paying them, where, in the past, that volunteer position could be, just somebody that's just bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and that just wants to get in the door, and they're not, not afraid to kind of wing it for a year, financially. So there's pros and cons to both.
No, bingo. I think that obviously there's more positives and negatives, but one is it's great for people to work as a volunteer. What a way to show your passion. Then also too, I think that if they're not paid, I really think that around the country, universities, colleges should have junior programs. It's just not getting done in the club setting. And for a young kid to be on the Baylor campus learning how to play, I think granted there's certainly some knotty pines with the rules and such, as far as recruiting violations. But yeah, we need to do a better job training the young people of America. That's one thing I liked about the volunteer, is that they said, you can go and, put your heart and soul into being part of the college team, but then you've got to find ways to give some lessons. And I do think that college coaches, it's very good for them to be in the trenches teaching beginners. Let me ask you about a shout out for Patricia's coach. I listened to one. I got to listen to more. Tell me about his podcast, or tell us about his podcast.
Yeah. Jaco has a podcast called The Rest of Us.
The Rest of Us?
Yeah, The Rest of Us, which means the schools that are not in the Power 4 conferences. So all the mid-major colleges, he came up with a podcast because he wanted them to have a voice and get recognized, and so that's how he came up with the podcast. And he has all kinds of mid-major coaches on there as guests, or former mid-major coaches on there, but he just does such a good job on and talk about funny too. I mean, he's spewing out a lot of facts, and he's talking about a lot of things that need to be talked about, but he does it also in a really funny way. So I highly encourage the listeners to go look him up, and it's a great podcast.
Yeah, I need to go back. I was when I was on the Baylor campus, I had I showed up, and Patricia heard his voice, said, "You're listening to my former coach." There's a lot of great things about podcasts, talk radio. When we did the camp workshop at Baylor University, a young girl from San Antonio, I believe she was named after the football coach, Tom Landry. Her aunt, I believe, might be cousin, but from your coaching tree, tell us about the gal who's at Tennessee. I was at Texas A&M, and I remember Steve Denton, who I spent a lot of time with. He said, "Hey, you should watch this girl run practice." She was the assistant, but he just said she's the real deal. Tell us about some of the coaches that you've trained that are now in tennis, and in particular, the girl at Tennessee.
Yeah, Allison Ojeda is the coach you're talking about. We worked together for 6 years. That was just such a fun ride. She just helped elevate the program here, and just such a special person and coach. Really knows how to motivate young people and push them. And she's definitely someone that was born to coach. And has done a tremendous job at Tennessee, where she played, and has had so much success there. This year she's named the ITA National Coach of the Year, and it's just so well deserved. She's terrific.
And has Baylor played? Have you played against her team now?
No, we kind of, when she left for Tennessee, she kind of asked me, "Hey, do you mind if we don't play?" And I think, and at first I thought, well, what's the big deal? But then with time, I kind of saw her point, like, it's hard. We obviously are rooting for each other. But, when you have to play each other, that could be the difference of maybe, making the tournament or being a seed in the tournament, or, and it's like, look, there's plenty of competition out there. We probably don't need to blur the lines like that. So we haven't played, but
well, there's a very good chance you could when it comes to tournament time.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I guess that it is what it is. But we've been intentional about not scheduling otherwise. And the downside of that is I love to see her and give feedback. I'd love to get her feedback on, hey, what do you think about our team? But yeah, it's something we just decided to do years ago, and we've stuck with it.
Tell us about some of the players on your, let's go through a few thoughts with this year's team. 11 players.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Boy, we have a phenomenal group of girls. Our returners, worked so hard, put in a full summer, training on a daily basis. They would come in at, around 8 a.m, get about 3 hours tennis in, and then go do their strength and conditioning in the afternoon, and doing that in the Texas heat. That's just pretty amazing. You got to be committed, as you know. It's not for everyone. So our returners have just been remarkable, and they're kind of the backbone of our team, And then we've been able to recruit some really strong freshmen, and as well as we picked up 2 young ladies from the transfer portal, Kennedy Gibbs from Purdue University, and then Christina Tiglia from Texas Tech. So the combination of our returners, who have just put in a lot of work, and then the freshmen, and then these transfers, Kennedy and Christina, we're gonna have a really strong team.
And how do you formulate your lineup? Does it vary from year to year?
Yeah, there's a lot of variables that go into that. So some of it is just summer and fall success. A lot of it is comes down to just the way they practice. How are they doing in their challenge matches? We're old school. We play a lot of challenge matches. We don't shy away from the ladder. The girls know that, hey, we're going to compete. And they do a great job of just, putting their head down, competing, and not letting that be interference with, the team dynamic. So, yeah, just a lot of variables, Steve, when it comes to making the lineup.
Yvonne and I, we brought a couple student assistants with us as well. We met most of the girls. You have an old team or young team?
Probably on the older side, so you have Kennedy, who's a junior. Christina is a senior. Luba is a senior. Sierra Berry, with a left-hander who's born in Waco, from Frisco, Texas. So she's a senior. Brooke Thompson, from Oklahoma, is a senior. And then, Lauren Littell is a junior. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Susanna Ubaka, who had a really strong summer, made the semifinals of the National Collegiate Summer Championships. She's only a sophomore.
That's the girl from Poland?
Yes, exactly. So, yeah. So we're just it's an older team for sure. There's a lot of seniors that we listed. So that makes it. That's your window to really compete for championships is usually better when you're having seniors and juniors.
And do you have players redshirt?
I wish we could redshirt players. I would be all about that. But it's just hard to do when you have smaller rosters and you have so many players play in college tennis. You have 6 singles, 3 doubles. You got a full slate of matches throughout the spring. You're competing 2-3 times a week. And then you have 8 scholarship players. It's just really hard to number one, to redshirt a player because you're just shortening your bench. And then number 2, to get the athlete to buy into doing it.
Yeah. I like the idea of a player not going early, but actually going in January and not competing for a lineup spot until really the following January. So it gives them 18 months. But it's based on, it's an individual, it's case by case study. I mean, some kids are ready to go, but the people I know that fast tracked and went to college early, I'd say 100% wish they didn't do that. Wish they took more time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So tell us a little about your fall schedule. When does it, Nationals, when is that, November?
Yeah, Nationals are in November. I think the 19th of November is when they start.
And you'll have both men and women at the same venue, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
How many people make the draw? 64?
Yes, 64, and then 32 doubles, and men and women. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of really great tennis at Baylor this fall.
Does Baylor have a lot of intramural courts for the? It's interesting there when you go on a campus tour. I tell people this all the time, juniors. I think a place like Baylor, I always say it's like an Olympic Village. But then when you get a tour of the campus and there's courts away from where the intercollegiate team plays, people say those are for the normal students. So what about your students, your players who won't be in the lineup? Do you have other courts on campus?
Yeah, we do. So we have our 12 varsity courts. Then we have our 6 indoor courts, the Hawkins Indoor Tennis Center, and then we have 6 courts right in the middle of campus, like right in the heart of campus at Penland. So there's the Penland tennis courts. And then they unfortunately just turned 4 of those courts into pickleball courts.
So 6 tennis courts and then 4 pickleball courts for anybody that likes to play pickleball, I guess.
Because I mean, there's going to be a court shortage with. I think that's one of the challenges of tennis in your position, college tennis, is to try to inspire, motivate, discipline the players that are not in the lineup. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty big roster, with 11 athletes. And the reality is, it's just super competitive to make our top 6. Any Division I Power 4 team. I mean, there's just a lot of good tennis players, a lot of depth. So, you have to have athletes that are willing to go the extra mile and to do a lot of work when no one's watching. And, that takes a really special type of athlete to do that, special person to go to do the extra, So, and that's what it takes. I mean, there's no way, if you're behind, and I'm speaking from experience, if you're behind, you gotta have to make up the time somewhere. You're just doing what everyone else is doing. The lead's going to be unassailable. The lead of your competition is going to be unassailable. So you got to work smarter and you got to work harder than your competition. And that's what we are constantly telling any of our players that want to play a bigger role on the team. You're going to just have to do more.
And the beautiful indoor center, can the players 24/7 go practice on their own?
Yeah, they have access to the indoor center anytime. Same with the outdoor. They get the lights turned on.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's never an issue of facilities. That's what's great about being on a college campus. You have all the facilities you could ask for. You have all of the coaching you could ask for. The coaches will go work with you whenever you want. It's just the motivation and just not getting caught up into the college routine. Your tennis is going to be structured, which is really good. Everybody loves that. But then your academics will be structured and your social will be structured. Problem is the social starts eating into the tennis and the academics. And you really got to find a way to cut that out. And if you're goal oriented, you're gonna have to cut that out and put way more time into improving your tennis. And a lot of that is going to be on your own time. Mark Hurd would talk about that. Mark would anytime he would talk to our team, he said, he made the decision early on during his time at Baylor that he was going to put everything he had into 2 things: his tennis and his academics, and the social was going to not be a part of it. So that would always be his advice to our team. You're not going to be great at 3 things. So put your energy into the 2 most important things.
I've heard it said the most difficult place to be professional is on a college campus.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to celebrate Tuesday because it's Tuesday, and tomorrow we're going to celebrate Wednesday. The workshop camp that we conducted at Baylor, there was probably a half dozen kids that I've known for some time that were there on Saturday and Sunday. When, we went through peer teaching, we just went through a lot of information. And it was, our fault. My mistake first is that they really should have, because they were homeschooled, they should have been there, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We were there. I perhaps I should reach out and contact Dave Mullins. I don't know when you could. Dave Mullins is now the director, starting in January, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of the Intercollegiate Tennis Association. But just get kids on a college campus and not only a junior development program, but can they visit a college campus where it's not a recruiting violation and they can actually. This is what it's all about. I want to be able to play at a school like this. And there was a young girl who came all the way from Connecticut. And I just told the mother, I said, no, the sooner the better that they can see the different levels. A lot of juniors, it's amazing that they, the parents as well, they haven't seen a college tennis match
Mm-hmm.
with
Yeah.
the. So what's your lead up? Just wind it down here. What's your lead up to the fall tournament? How's that different than, say, in years past? You had to obviously change your schedule because now the tournament's in the fall.
Yeah, what's interesting now with the individual in the fall is that, for a while there, a lot of college coaches were kind of shifting their focus from these individual tournaments, where they were maybe flighted and, there would be an individual champion. And they were starting to move towards these hidden duel events where you basically simulate like a duel match. All the results would count for, individual standings. And there may be even an individual winner over the course of the weekend, but they were structured in a way that you would, play, 3 doubles matches and you play 6 singles, and they would call them a hidden duel. So a lot of coaches were starting to trend to playing those events in the fall, and now we've kind of flipped it back to, okay, we're going to go more to these individual style events. So this weekend, we're going to play our annual HEB Invitational, and it's going to be a flighted, tournament. So there'll be 4 or 5 flights, compass draw, and so very different than what we've done in recent years, where we were playing more of a simulation of a dual match.
HEB, is that in Corpus?
Yeah, so HEB, the grocery store. I think.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it started. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. There's some big tennis center there.
Right, HEB Tennis Center in Corpus.
That's right. Right. Yeah. No, that's just the sponsor of our tournament.
The Yvonne.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back and what are your thoughts on Baylor? You share with our listeners. You were on the campus. I didn't make it to the Welcome Center. I wanted to say a few things about your experience at Baylor.
It was very grand. It was extensive. I could compare it with my own university that I attended, University of California, San Diego. It was San Diego was right by it was actually very, very nice, right by the beach. It was also massive, just like I got the feeling from Baylor. Very spread out. One building doesn't really connect to another. You have to walk a great distance, it seemed, to get from one building to another. But the Welcome Center was just awe-inspiring. Like your jaw just hits the floor. You walk in, it's an 80-foot tall ceiling, and you look around, there are four of these huge spires that just come up from the ground, go through the roof, and then exit out the roof, and you can see them from the outside. And you're just thinking to yourself, like, this is the Welcome Center? Like, what do the classrooms look like? And you can walk into each spire, and then they'll have like a little interactive thing for you to do, an activity. And it was amazing. It was just like lost for words, like how nice everything was. And if I was a player come to that school, I'd feel very honored and feel very driven to do the college right. To be provided with that kind of opportunity to go to a school like that, it's like, well, I better start working hard.
To get to a school like that, I think one thing with Pat Summitt, the late Pat Summitt, University of Tennessee basketball. I was there for the pro tournament one time, and this family that was housing Austin Krychek and myself, I said, Pat Summitt? We're good friends with Pat Summitt. So I wasn't with Pat. She was ill at the time. But so the next day, I'm till 1 o'clock in the morning, talking to the women's basketball coaching staff. But I understand that University of Tennessee, they built this new facility for the women's basketball team. But going back to Linka's speech, worthiness, is she wouldn't let the players use a new locker room because she didn't think they were worthy. And, the whole thing, like in ice hockey, Joey, where, you can't walk, there's a carpet in the middle of the room and the Tennessee logo, you can't walk across the logo. But our group on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we got a tour of the, your indoor, your offices and not the indoor course, but we were mostly at the indoor course, but the outdoor, and then to go through the locker room. I mean, the kids couldn't stop talking about the locker room. It's amazing. It's the big time. My question with that is, don't you think players can get spoiled?
Yeah, absolutely. They can start taking things for granted, to have those type of facilities. The vast majority of Baylor tennis players, played without scholarships, played without, these grand, facilities, whether they're academic or athletic. Their experience is very different than the athletes of, let's say, the last 20 years or so, So there's pros and cons to both, I think there's something to, having nice facilities, as long as you have the gratitude and understand that there's a responsibility. There was a lot of players that came before you that helped, create this environment. And now you have responsibility to keep that going, to keep that standard up. And if the athletes have that mindset, then it's great. It's fine. But if they don't, then it's kind of hard.
With, this young gal from Atlanta came out. I think she's in the 8th grade. I think the parents, the listeners, how many days, and you just don't want to have bad days, bad reps. With, let's just go over one last thing. Great to talk to you about your journey in tennis. GreatBase. How's your connection to us? I mean, how'd that unfold?
Yeah. I wish it would have happened sooner. I wish I would have came across the information, years ago, but it is what it is, and my first experience with it was George Goldoff was, our men's, volunteer assistant for 2 years. And, he just did such a remarkable job with our men's team. And, I remember talking to him about, GreatBase, social media and some of the videos and so, he would just, rave about his experience with it. And so that was the first time. That kind of was, planting a seed, where I okay, this stuff is really good. I got to just spend more time in it. And, and watching George practice, I just was fascinated with how clean he hit the ball and his volleys, and he just looked like a player that could play at the next level, and I know he was kind of working towards that when he was at Baylor. But anyway, and he's just an impressive guy. So that's kind of where it started. And then and then like from there, it was just doing more research, listening to the podcast. As a kid, or not as a kid, but when I started playing tennis as a teenager, Vic Braden was still a huge name. And, you read the tennis magazines, he's there. He was always having some kind of article published, And then my coach, Harry Greenan, had a bunch of videotapes, beta videotapes of Vic. And so I asked him, hey, can I borrow these? And I went and rented a beta machine at some local mini mart so I could watch all the tapes. So that was always, I always had like this fond memories of that time of being, playing tennis. So then when I started, doing more of a deep dive in GreatBase and learning more about you, Steve, your connection with Vic and Welby and all these guys, then it just started. It was like these dots were being connected for me. And I thought, okay, you know what? Like, wow, this is really something special here. This is, this is the truth. The truth is coming out. And that was one thing I felt like all these years in tennis where I really struggled. Losing didn't bother me, honestly. It was the fact that I felt like I could do a better job. I constantly, every year, felt like there were some things I was doing well, and there were things that I wasn't doing well, but I couldn't even put my finger exactly on why and what was what. It was just literally like being lost. And you're just kind of like, you're getting warmer, but you don't ever really, you can never really find what you're looking for. So when I stumbled across the information, and it started with George, and George probably didn't even know that he was kind of planting that seed for me. But the more I started doing it, doing my diligence, and I'm crazy obsessed about when I latch on to something, I'm going to study it till I really understand it at the deepest level, and I found with the information, I was like, man, this is never ending. This is amazing. This is great because, this is going to take years. And that is exciting for me. I was like, this is exactly what I've been looking for in tennis, where I just felt a lot of times I just didn't know. I thought I was close, and I thought some things were making sense, but there were so many other things that were not connecting. And I wasn't just okay with, I'm not okay with not getting it right. I wanted to get it right. I didn't want to be right. I just wanted to get it right. And now, with the GreatBase, I feel like it's exciting to have a whole new perspective looking at the sport, and I'm just so thankful that you've been so willing to put the information out there and really be honest about it and not holding back and just your transparency with the information and then that's led to also this network. This is the other part of it that I just am really thankful for. The network of coaches. Meeting Dave Anderson and spending time with him and Dave Watts and and then some of the gentlemen on the podcast. I've never met them, but I feel like I know them. Like Andy Fitzel, I feel like I know the guy because I've listened to the podcast probably 300 times. And you know what I mean. And just you starting to build this network, of coaches and Mike Carter. I knew Mike, and now I know him in a whole different way now, and I just have so much respect for him. He went and did that demo. I mean, that guy, I don't know the last time he did the demo of the strokes, the 42-second drill there that you made him do. I mean, it's just, the guy just knows his stuff. I mean, it's just so impressive, and there's so many other coaches, Richard Hernandez in Toronto, where I grew up, I met him very briefly at the Canadian Open, but, just listening to him and starting to do, some research about him. I mean, just what an amazing coach and what he's done for Canadian tennis, just remarkable. And Miran Man and, his great work. And it just opened up not only the information, but then there's this brotherhood of coaches that now, that it just opened, and I never felt that in the sport. I had to, you feel it a bit in college coaching a little bit, but you're competing against these people too. Now it's just so refreshing to be like, hey, I can call Dave Watts and talk tennis for 2 hours and all we're doing is trying to help each other, so really what you've done, Steve, for the sport is is just really exceptional, and can't thank you enough.
Well, no, thank you for the kind words. Let me back up to George Goldoff. I call him George Silveroff. And I was talking to his dad at the NCAs, and I said, "Well, I call your kid Silveroff." And then afterwards, he asked George, "Why does he call you Silveroff?" And I guess he just needed to be more in more hockey locker rooms where they just find a way to chirp and needle you and give you the gears. But one thing with George is I met him when he was in California. He was working with Jimmy Johnson, who we trained years ago and runs an academy. And then he went to Texas, and at Texas, the connections, Michael Center, he played for Scotty Perelman. Scotty Perelman was Vic Braden coach. And then Bruce Burke was the assistant coach. And Bruce Burke, he went through some workshops like I ran in Baylor. He worked for Craig Tiley. So there really all are these connections. And then his dad wouldn't let him play until he got his degree. So he was told way back when he was a teenager to come and see me, but he finally comes and sees me after graduation. He went back to get a degree, and I said, "These are the books you have to read." He was going to give me hitting lessons. I said, "This is what you need to do during your hitting lessons." And so long story short story long. Then he connects with Matt Clore, because at that time, he's back at the UCA, I spoke to him today, that Matt kept telling me he needs to spend more time. And then what happened is George was with us during the pandemic. And that's where a deep dive. I mean, he, when you can actually live it and, be around it, like say Dave Anderson, who came to visit at the workshop, or Mike Carter, they went through that 2-year program. But Carter was there 5 years, and Anderson, even though he had autonomy and he was running 2 clubs in a neighboring town, he's basically part of what we did for 8 years. So yeah, there's read the book, but then there's live the book, and just over and over again. But yeah, you were even over in Japan, which is exciting. You got to meet Take Morita.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, that's where our critics will call it a cult, so they don't understand that the bond really is in the education. It's in the information. I'd like to think I was that popular. People want to hang around just because I'm such a good guy. But let's do this, Joey. We'll let you get back to bed here with. But Ivan, you want to run through that quickly? We'll just go. He's got some bullets from this, and it's been great to have you on as a guest.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just took my usual notes. I'm going to read them off here. Summary. Tennis players are born out of defeat. Always play your age group. Bow-legged, looking like he just got off a horse. Wore borrowed clothes and combed his hair in the wind. What are you willing to sacrifice to reach your goals? Don't let the classroom interfere with your education. If you want to get it right, it will take more time and discipline. Responsibility and obligation versus rights and privileges. Ride the pine means to sit on the bench. No problem. Have no problem to hear the word no. Integrity and humor. You said, Joey, help her stay and win or help her leave and lose. It's not all about me, from the Linka speech. It's okay to be scared. It's not okay to quit. You have to work smarter and harder than your opponents. If you're goal oriented, you need to make the decision to cut out the social. You're not going to be great at 3 things. Can't use new locker room because they weren't worthy. Losing didn't bother me. It was the fact that I knew I could do better. Not okay with not getting it right.
Oh, that's great. Another time, Joey, we'll have to get on and just you ask somebody to say, just if you were to sit and make a list of coaches that you've met, that would be a long, long list. That would be a book. That would be a great idea for a book. And that's the kind of thing that people should be jotting that down now. So if you're journey in tennis, 30 some years, if you were to just write down one pearl, we talk about Daniel Cole's book, The Talent Code, but the Little Book of Talent. We tell everybody they should have a copy in their shoulder bag and take it out of your bag and just keep rereading it. And there's 52 tips, but we should do that another time because that's one thing is you get to meet so many people along the journey. One thing with the curriculum we put together, we'd like to say, okay, I'll tell people I'm not a scientist, I'm not an artist, but I've studied my craft. And basically, GreatBase is a research project. GreatBase is a lot of homework, but it's an art form. It's both. It's science and it's an art form. And I do think that many times people think of us just as technique, but I think it's really more of a challenge to coach. I guess we could end with that as a question is more of a challenge to coach an 18-year-old than an 8-year-old, because by the time they arrive on a college campus like Baylor, they have the challenge of being away from home, the tough academic load, and all these decisions. Now they're living away from their parents. But I think that's where you have to be a little schizophrenic too. You can't treat everybody the same. But I guess my question would be, with coaching college, what do you think the greatest challenge is in working with kids that come in at age 18 and, they got some holes in their game, but you still got a competitive schedule. It's not like you can say, well, we brought you in on a 4-year scholarship. We're going to sit you for the first 3.5 years, rebuild your game. What would your comment on that be?
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge is complacency, this illusion that you're good, that you're a good player, and that if you start to make changes, I would rather say make improvements in your game, but it's all about your perspective. But you start making changes in your game, you're no longer going to be a good player, or your results are going to go, backwards. I just don't believe in that. And I think that's one of the, that's the biggest challenge, is to help your players, their parents, whoever's a part of their team, overcome that illusion that if they were to make a change in their game, that it's not going to be worth it, or it's going to impact them in the short term. I have never seen that happen in my, 25 plus years of college coaching. I have never chose the short term over the long term. It's just beginning with the end in mind. I think that's that Stephen Covey book.
Right.
But it's like, just the challenge is, you got to put the end, you got to begin with the end in mind, and just fight this battle of wanting to stay the same. You just can't afford to do it. And the players are their fundamentals are definitely not as good as they used to be, in my opinion. You're getting more extreme grips, more palm up serves, more chipping and chopping on the volleys, more horizontal swings. I mean, you're getting more and more of that. So if you can't begin with the end in mind, I mean, what are you going to do? How long is this process going to take? You're never going to make any changes, because there's always a tournament. There's always some reason not to do it. So it's just like, make up your mind you're going to do it, and go for it. Why waste one more second staying the same?
Yeah. Oh, that's well put. In many ways, you're so young. Having started at 28, my math, if I check my math, Yvonne, 51 years young. Another time what we talk about is your wife's side of it. That must be a lot of learning for you to have your wife. She works in the athletic department, correct?
Yes. Yeah. She's moved up so much over the years. I can't even tell you what her official title is right now, but she is assisting with our deputy AD in a
kind of chief of staff role. So yeah, she's an amazing woman. She's I've learned so much from her, from the briefcase side, as you put it, and I think she's been very open to learning from the coaching side of it. So we're a good team.
That's great. And we have to get those young guys, your two boys, hitting some balls. I did their clinic on a Monday night with that was fun. And it's Luca and Nico. Which one was just chatting me up the whole time?
Oh, Luca. Yeah.
Luca.
Yeah, he's a man. That guy likes to get after it. You know, he's a character.
He reminded me he's a general manager. I said, you ready to just have a cigar? And what did you say about Red Auerbach, right?
Oh yeah. So on the drive in to the clinic, you know, I said, guys, you this is a really special day. You're going to meet the Red Auerbach of tennis. And they know who Red Auerbach is because I've brainwashed them into being Boston Celtics fans. So they know all about Red Auerbach. And I knew if I put it this way, they would be like super psyched to meet you. So they got it right away. They're like, oh my gosh, can I call him Red? Can I call him Red? I said, well, you can ask him, you know. And then I think immediately, Steve, he asked you right off the bat if it was okay to call you Red.
Yeah, that's where we started talking about cigars.
Yeah. And then he was asking you if you had a cigar, and but
that was fun.
That was fun. You did. That was amazing what you did in that workshop. And I know Yvonne and all of your guys there. Just I'm so thankful for that. That was just such an incredible experience. You know.
Yeah, we'd love to do it again. But no, it's been great to have you on the podcast. Great to get connected, and look forward to spending more time with you and your players.
Oh, sounds great. Yeah, thanks so much, Steve. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Joey.
Yeah, thanks for the passion. It's a late hour.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. I probably won't sleep now. So pumped up.
But one last thing is that this is the year of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh man, I hope so. I really hope so.
I love talking to Joey about the Toronto Maple Leafs. They haven't won since 1967, so this is the year.
Gotta be. I mean, we gotta make it happen. Matthews he's playing at that level where he could carry a team. You know, we just need some defense and goaltending. That's
a good lesson that tennis players come from everywhere. Matthews is from Arizona, and he's the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But no, it's a great sport. I got to say this is these two girls that are here from Toronto. Maybe I said it before, but they're Miran Mann said, okay, they got to come down here and be with us for 4 or 5 weeks. Or, you know, they just won't fit in. They'll be so far behind, and it won't be compatible for these two girls to enter his program. And so there's a bad storm. These ladies are at the Toronto airport. There's no flights. They got in the car and drove. That's a hike to go from Toronto, Ontario to Wintergreen, Virginia. But yeah, I think that's a good thing to end on. That's a sure thing that the Maple Leafs will win the Stanley Cup in 2025. But Joey, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, super. All right, get some sleep. Adios, amigos. All right, Ivani, baby. Iron Man. Look at the camera. Look how tired this guy, Ivan, is. Always said, you know, he don't want his mom to see him because his mom's going to know he's just working too hard. But I think that's why he can work hard, is it was how his mom and dad brought him up. Anyway, another podcast, 215 in the books. There's a lot of pearls of wisdom. How's it go? Golden nuggets for your tennis treasure chest.
That's right.
Dun, 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 dun. Over and out. Thanks.
Go Leafs.
Go Leafs, yeah.